Alright, so today what I wanted to do is talk about something called the law of cosines. And just so you know, there's no such thing as a law of tangents, and this isn't as confusing as what we did yesterday. So today is the 30th. You're going to need a calculator, so when you get that ready, this is section 6.2. It's called the law of cosines. And the purpose of the law of cosines, it's what we use if we can't use the law of sines. Meaning that we don't have a full ratio. Meaning you don't have a side and the angle opposite it for anything. Something else you want to make sure you concentrate on with the law of cosines is you want to make sure you find the largest angle or side first. If you don't do that, then you run the option of getting an answer that doesn't make any sense. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that means that you would get an answer where the largest side is opposite the largest angle, smallest side opposite the smallest angle. But if you find the largest side or angle first, it minimizes the possibility of that. And you also want to make sure that you check your solutions for, we'll call it sensibility. I think that's the right word, sensibility, to make sense. Or let's say feasibility. I think that's a better word. Once completed. What this means, this last one is smallest angle is opposite the smallest side, and the largest angle is opposite the largest side. Alright, just like we did with law of sines. The law of cosines, it's important. Now there's two different cases that could happen here that we need to use the law of cosines. One is if we're given three sides, because remember, that's like an SSS situation. If you're given three sides, you don't have any angles, right? So you can't use law of sines because you don't have a full fraction. That's what I meant by that first thing here, if you don't have a full ratio. The second option that wouldn't give you a full ratio is if you have two sides and an angle between. I guess side angle side. And what would happen here is you might have like, I don't know, maybe 10, an angle, and then maybe like another side. Right? But we still don't have any full ratios. So let me show you what the law of sines actually looks like. Or I'm sorry, law of cosines. Law of cosines says to find a side, a squared would equal b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times the cosine of angle A. Now try to find a pattern here, right? We have an side, we have an angle, and we have the other sides. If we want to get side A, we could figure out, the right side and then take the square root to get side A. To get side B, we would need to have angle B, and we'd use the other sides, a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of B, and then c squared would be a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of angle C. That's if we want to find a side. Now we could rearrange these. Like, let's take a look at the first one. What if we want to find an angle? If we have three sides and we want an angle, We could bring the b squared and the c squared on the other side. And divide both sides by negative 2bc. You wind up with a formula that says the cosine of angle A, we could divide both top and bottom by the negative here, would be b squared plus c squared minus a squared over 2bc. It's another formula, but it comes from this one. So now that you know where it comes from, it might be easier to use this formula if you want to get an angle. Meaning if you have three sides and you need an angle, we're going to use these. Find an angle. Cosine of angle B would be a squared plus c squared minus b squared over 2ac. And then the cosine of angle C would be a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. All right, so now let's try a couple examples and give you your homework. First example looks like this. Side B is 13, side A is 21.5, and angle C is 39 degrees. On a test or anything, I wouldn't tell you if you have to use law of sines or cosines, you would have to recognize it. So looking at this, we don't have an ambiguous case. We have an angle, but we don't have side C, so we don't have to worry about the crazy stuff we did yesterday. I also see all three different letters, right? So we're not going to be able to make a full fraction. So it doesn't matter how we label a triangle. I always like doing it in this order. It's just habit, but it doesn't matter. So B would be 13. A is 21.5. Oh, yeah. What am I doing here? B is 13, side B. Side A is 21.5, and the angle between is 39 degrees. Get organized. Right. And you can see we can't possibly use the law of sines because we don't have a full fraction. So this is where we have to use law of cosines. And we only have one angle. So because we only have one angle, we have angle C. The only formula with angle C in it with law of cosines was c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of angle C. Let's go ahead and figure out what side C is. C squared would equal 21.5 squared plus 13 squared minus 2, 21.5 times 13 times the cosine of 39. If we do this, let's see what the calculator says. 21.5 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 21.5 times 13 times the cosine of 39. Calculator saying this is 196.825, whatever. Let's take the square root of both sides. And I'm getting side C is 14.0. All right, well, now that we have that side, we could use law of sines. We would use this fraction, cross multiply. Let's figure out what angle B is. So if we cross multiply and divide, I'm going to do 13 times the sine of 39, divide by 14, and I'm getting that the sine of B is equal to 0.584, whatever. Take the inverse of both sides to get angle B, and I'm getting 35.8. 35.75, which is 35.8. We'll round it. And if we do 180 minus the 35.8 minus the 39, we're getting 105.2 degrees. Let's just double check that largest angle, largest side, smallest angle, smallest side. So we're good, and that's the answer. All right, we'll do one more. Let's do one with all three sides. So side A is 4, B is 5, and C is 7. Clearly can't do law of sines because we don't have any angles. Now the way that we talked about doing this is we should always find the largest angle first, or side first. So that's going to be angle C, because the largest side is 7, so the largest angle has to be opposite to 7. So the formula for angle C would be the cosine of angle C is equal to a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. So the cosine of C would be 4 squared plus 5 squared minus 7 squared over 2 times 4 times 5. Now, I always do the top first and then the bottom second. I don't do it together. It's too easy to make a mistake on the calculator. Let's see what this is. 4 squared plus 5 squared minus 7 squared. It's negative 8 over 20 times 2 is 40. So if we take the inverse cosine of both sides, inverse cosine of negative 8 over 40 gives us 101.5 degrees. All right, so now we have a full fraction. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply here. So 5 times the sine of 101.5 divided by 7. I'm getting that the sine of angle B is equal to 0.69994, whatever. Don't round that. Take the inverse sine of both sides. Getting angle B is 44.4 degrees. And if I do 180 minus that, 180 minus 44.4 minus 101.5, getting 34.1. Right. Largest angle, largest side, smallest angle, smallest side. Everything checks out. If it didn't check out, what I would do is, instead of finding angle B first, I would do these two fractions and see if that gave me an answer where the largest angle is opposite the largest side. Smallest angle opposite the smallest side. Alright, so you should be good with this. This isn't as intense as yesterday. For homework, what I would like you to please do is on page 441, please do numbers 1 to 4. Good luck. Have a nice day.